So the modern client journey, just the word modern, implies that it's changed, doesn't it? That it's not the same as it used to be. There's a antiquated client journey and there's a modern client journey. You could illustrate how it's changed by thinking about how other things have changed for us and for consumers generally. For example, take something like the car buying experience, which we're all familiar with. The way it used to be done, you would show up at the dealership when it was time to buy a car. Maybe you have that car dealership row in your town. You just there's 5 dealerships down there. We're just going to go and we'll see what we get. You show up at the dealership and you meet the salesperson. You like them, or you don't. You don't. You leave. You like them. You stay. They give you their pitch. They take you on a test drive and you buy a car. It's all contained. It's all controlled. They controlled the whole process. But today, consumers, well, we've taken back control of that process, haven't we? If you've bought a car, you know. You go online, you do your research, you watch the reviews, the videos, the third-party reviews, the analysis, the virtual test drives, you build and configure your model. The dealership is now at the end of the journey, not the beginning, not even the middle. Usually, you only go to the one dealership, or at least maybe a few that are part of the same brand when you've decided what vehicle you want, generally. And then you might have them competing against each other on price virtually. But my, how that's changed in just a few short years. And the same is true for really every business, every industry. The modern client journey is complicated. It is multi-threaded. And that means that the journey itself being complicated is hard enough, but then you factor in the external environment, which is constantly changing, and it becomes even more complicated. And maybe you've felt this in your business. Just think, for example, about all the once in a lifetime, or once in a generation, or once in a decade events that we've had. Isn't that interesting how people always say, well, this is a once in a lifetime event? It's a, like, well, there's one every 6 months. So like how, maybe one every 3 months. How once in a lifetime is this? Look back over the decade that we've been in, the disruption we've seen since 2016. I mean, if you think back to, well, I don't know, 2016 you having a conversation with 2026 you, and they wouldn't believe you. 2016 you would never believe what we've been through. And these things have absolutely made it more challenging to create systematic growth. Now, there are firms doing it, and we are going to show you what it takes today. We're going to talk about that. But we do need to acknowledge that this level of disruption requires a new level of resilience for us, for advisory firms. See, you've got your firm trying to grow, trying to absorb disruption, trying to adapt to change across the way consumers behave, across the expectations that they have for you, for technology, the external pace of change around recovery cycles in markets and technology, disruptions, the uncertainty that's out there, the future being harder to predict than ever before. And all of that affects how you do financial planning and legacy planning. And people have difficult questions that need to be answered. And that consumer anxiety, that client anxiety is a big challenge as well. But it's also an opportunity. Take a look at a little bit of the data on the right. Recent reports find 87% of Americans are feeling anxious about their financial situation. That's the vast majority of people. 80% say their anxiety is worse than last year. And 70% say that it's not just occasional momentary concern, but they are in a state of persistent stress-driven anxiety. So what does that mean for you as an advisor? It means that you face two responsibilities. You have to actively manage this for the relationships you already have. And then you have to know how to approach this for the ones who may be engaging with you or are not ready yet.